Welcome to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. On this show, we take an in-depth look at each of these franchises and discover that both of them can coexist in today's fandom as they introduce us to fresh, new, and exciting stories, characters, galactic destinations, and so much more. For this mission today, I am your captain of the ship. I am Kyle, but as always, I have a full complement of crew. Of course, we require not only a weapons expert, but also a high-quality science officer, and I can't think of anybody better for that than the lovely Miss Hayley Stoddard.
Hello and good evening. Greetings, my fellow humanoids.
Yes. You're not crawling in any Jeffries tubes this mission, right?
I cannot comment on that.
Okay. Well, also too, I got to have a good navigator. I've got a guy who can get me out of situations. And you know what? I can't help myself. I'm so proud of him, Bobcat. I call him Bobcat, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
What? Hold on. Oh, gross. Oh, man. Sorry, I'm cleaning up with the remains of that dude with all the goo on the floor. Gene just upchucked and took off. He seemed, upset by some comments made by someone else. So I'm trying to clean up his mess, man. Sorry.
So yeah, it's a lot of sweetness with that, though. I'm just saying. And of course, though, you know what? I need somebody who's going to take out those, underground kind of mercenaries. Always the criminal element. And I can't think of anybody better than that, especially after her time in Section 31, Miss Amy Nelson.
Well, it's a good thing I'm going to the gym and working on my high kicks because Michelle Yeoh is awesome.
Without a doubt, we all bow to the altar of Michelle Yeoh. But we are here with Union Federation episode 77. We're going to be covering the Star Trek Discovery season 3, episode 2, Far From Home, plus a few little tidbits here and there. So without further ado, first, let's open up those hailing frequencies. Mr. Reitzel, Mr. Bobcat, would you mind to tell the people where they can find Union Federation and all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network?
All right. Yes, I can. First of all, YouTube, Fandom Podcast Network is now on YouTube, and we would love it if you can follow us there, give us a subscribe, and like our shows that you watch and listen there, of course. All of our audio podcast, of course, go straight up there as well if you prefer to listen to your audio podcast through YouTube. And plus, we will have some cool, unique shows hitting YouTube as well and some specials, so make sure you pay attention to that. You can find our master feed for all of our podcasts at fpnet.podbean.com, and the Fandom Podcast Network can stream and download on that Podbean app. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on all major podcast platforms, of course, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. Please also follow the Union Federation on our Union Federation Facebook page. We got a great group of people there that love both Star Trek and the Orville. Make sure you check that out. We are also on Twitter and Instagram at Union Fed Podcast. And please check out our main Fandom Podcast Network Facebook page there and give us a like. We would appreciate that. You can email us at unionfederation@gmail.com. My name is Kevin, and I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW or on Instagram at AKyleFandom. And Kevin, I just got to ask you with that particular social media handle you have, I was wondering if you were searching eBay for some particular toys I showed you yesterday.
Yes, I'm busy. I'm working on that. Sorry. Yes, big Demolition Man fan. Excited about that. Hayley, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Trekkie01D.
Awesome. And Amy, where can we find you?
And they find me over on Galaxy Class and All Good Things. That's on the United Federation Podcast Network. We have a lot of UFP going on in my life. That's all I'm saying.
Not confusing at all.
No. But you can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. And of course, they're on the Facebook group page.
Awesome. There is two great ways you can support the Fandom Podcast Network and the Union Federation. First of all, please visit our TeePublic store. Please support the Fandom Podcast Network and the Union Federation podcast while wearing your favorite FPNet show logos and, of course, Union Federation. And right now, Hayley's showing an awesome mug that she's sipping out of right now. What you got in there, by the way, Hayley?
I have some cranberry tea.
Nice. Sipping out of a Union Federation podcast.
And I bet you laced with a little bit of Romulan ale. I'm just saying.
But search Fandom Podcast Network and, of course, the Union Federation podcast there on TeePublic. And when you purchase something there, it helps us out. So make sure to do that. Also, too, we love reviews. Please support us by searching for Fandom Podcast Network on your podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. Of course, we would love a rated review. We love 5 stars, of course, but we love feedback in general. Back to you, Captain Kyle.
Well, you know what? You would think we were maybe on the Doctor Who podcast type 40 because we're going to do a little time traveling. I'm just confused. Just crossing the streams of our shows and stuff like that. I'm just confused. But we are going to talk Discovery Season 3, Episode 2, Far From Home. So without further ado, let's head into the Officers' Lounge. So we had a big episode of Discovery this week. Last week, we kind of had the focus be on Michael Burnham and her arrival into the future. This week, they shifted the focus over to the crew and what happened to the Discovery as it came through the wormhole. I want to kind of start things off here and give everybody kind of the teaser of the episode. The icy planet known as the Colony. Having followed Michael Burnham through a wormhole into the future, USS Discovery emerges at a high speed above a planet surrounded by many large asteroids. The crew is unconscious, with Saru awakening first and rousing the bridge crew back to stations. Jet Reno explains that tidal forces in the wormhole, similar to G-forces, knocked everyone unconscious. The ship is in an uncontrolled free fall as the crew races to regain maneuverability. Discovery plows straight through an asteroid covered in trees and falls towards the planet. Approaching a glacier on the planet's surface, Jen Reyes fires a graviton beam to soften the ice and cushion the impact. After hitting the ice, the ship's deflector shields fail, and the ship slams to a halt, jolting many crew members and throwing Lieutenant Kayla Detmer over a console. The ship rests atop the glacier, groaning from damage, with large chunks of ice resting atop of the hull. Guys, I just got to say real quick, Discovery does it again with a beautiful opening sequence, right? Going right in with a lot of action. And Discovery can take a beating, Amy.
They can, and it can. She can. Yes, for sure. And not only are they knocked out from the G-forces, but then they get a crash landing. And there is so much going on. I mean, it's a surprise that everyone isn't just crippled over and in sick bay. It just really strong, powerful, and you know that they're ready to move forward. I thought it was a very strong open.
Kevin, one of the things, no matter what issues we've had with Discovery, they've always done the effects right. And this was just an action effect shot right from the get-go.
Oh, it was a great way to kind of get an intro into the peril that the crew aboard the Discovery is. But it was kind of like the writers were like, okay, I'm going to call you, Deanna, on your Enterprise D crash in Generations. I'm going to call you, Deanna, on your Enterprise E ramming the Romulan. And we're going to do something similar and try to raise you.
Yes, I agree.
Am I missing another main ship crash somewhere? Please let me know.
Not involving Deanna. I think you got them both. Thank you.
Hayley, considering the weather where you're at, I think you know about crash landing on an ice planet.
Yeah, and I have to say, nothing's going to soften the ice. So I don't think that was very effective. They hit that pretty hard. It was really quite interesting and whatnot. But I have to say this. I really am not a fan of the previously on. And this one seemed to run a little longer than it should because, let's be honest, if you haven't watched seasons 1 and 2, why are you watching season 3?
This is very true.
I'm wondering if
no one has forgotten. Like, everybody's gone back and rewatched seasons 1 and 2 before 3 came out. Even if you haven't, which I didn't, you haven't forgotten. Please stop, Discovery. Please stop.
I kind of needed it. I got to be honest with you.
One thing that I found that previously does is it clues you in for what more to focus. I really noticed that yesterday, last week, and with this week that, you know, it just seemed to focus. And then I heard something. I'm like, oh yeah, I just remembered that because I saw it on previously.
Well, let's continue on into Act 1. I'll read that. And the bridge crew recovers from the crash landing and applauds Detmer's piloting skills. However, Detmer has a bloody head wound and is sluggish, so Saru orders her to report to sick bay. Tactical and both internal and long-range communications are down. Ensign Tilly reports that sensors are also down, leaving her no way to determine where or when they are. Reno points out that Terra Elysium, their supposed destination, was not a particularly icy planet, indicating at the very least they're on the wrong planet. She also speculates that systems are down because of a ruptured plasma manifold from the crash. Repairing it will require finding and fixing many damaged EPS relays and conduits. Saru notes that Discovery is unable to contact Burnham for the moment, but that the crew remains together and alive and will search for her when possible. As Saru surveys damage, Tilly tells him that the planet has pockets of atmosphere with high levels of oxygen than elsewhere. The pockets are decagons, a 10-sided polygon indicating they were constructed. Tilly has also found signs of a populated settlement inside one of the pockets, reassuring Saru that their mission to stop control from destroying all sentient life in the galaxy was successful. They encounter R.A. Bryce, who reports that a critical translator, there we go. Thank you, Science Officer Stoddard, in the communication system needs a complete rebuild, which he estimates will take at least 6 hours if the ship has enough rubidium. Philip Giorgio approaches them, and Tilly notes she has some stuff of Leland's remains on her shoes. Giorgio states that everybody had to make sure he was dead, and informs Saru someone needs to clean the spore cube because there are gooey bits of Leland everywhere. She insists that repairing the communication system should be a top priority in order to find Burnham, but Saru directs repairs on the EPS system to continue so the ship can regain flight capability and have defensive weapons. Lieutenant Paul Stamets awakens in a chaotic sickbay where he was taken after being impaled by a 7-inch shard of beryllium alloy shortly before Discovery entered the wormhole. Hugh Colbert says he would not have awoken Stamets from his medically induced coma so soon, but that the casualties worse off than him require the use of his biobed. Colbert places him in a cellular regeneration chamber across the hall where he orders him to remain for at least one full cycle. Though healing the scar on his chest will require 5 cycles, the two kiss. Stamets says he is glad to have Colbert back. Colbert replies that it's good that Stamets is alive. Meanwhile, Dr. Tracy Pollard sends away an alien crewman who has died. She then informs Detmer that her neurological tests are clear and she has no concussion, meaning she can return to duty. Detmer, however, is still feeling sluggish. She leaves sickbay but does not acknowledge Colbert as she walks out, leaving him confused. In the ready room with Saru, Nan, and Giorgio, Tilly reveals Discovery does not have enough rubidium to reconstruct the translator needed to restore communications, frustrating Giorgio. However, the settlement Tilly detected has rubidium along with other elements Tilly cannot identify. She adds that the 50 settlers have ships that appear designed for warp travel but do not have any dilithium. Saru and Tilly prepare to depart to barter for the materials they need, which include getting a treatment in order to be able to breathe the planet's atmosphere. He leaves Nan in charge of repairs and directs Giorgio to assist in fixing the EPS system. In engineering, a groaning Stamets verbally spars with Reno, whose own back hurts following the crash landing, regarding tracking down the ruptured relay, and the two reluctantly pair up. Inside the spore cube, Jean cleans up the remains of Leland. Saru and Tilly, dressed in civilian clothes, depart the ship through an airlock onto the glacier. Tilly marvels at the strange locale, including the giant hunk of planet hanging there in the sky, and laments she does not have time to study the phenomenon. Saru claims Tilly, who asserts that Giorgio thinks she is worthless, but Saru replies they are introducing themselves to the future and that Tilly makes a wonderful first impression. The pair spot a dark figure in the distance who watches them before turning away. A lot happens in this first act, guys. Lots of places to go. Gene, are you done cleaning up Leland?
Let me tell you right now, Jet Reno, I love her. She's great. She's kind of the person that just says it like it is and calls everyone on everything, any type of subterfuge they may have with their feelings or whatever, and it's a breath of fresh air. And I know all the techno babble can get a little confusing at times, but for some reason, when she says stuff, it makes it more simplified. I don't know, but yeah, a lot to unfold there. With a little bit of Giorgio going on there, and but what I thought was interesting though was Saru saying, basically, I know we want to know more what's out there, but we got to fix what we got going on here, and I love the fact that. He's earned that captain's chair and knowing what to do and what is right. And I'm a little worried about Detmer. I don't know if there's something else weird that's kind of going on there instead of just like some shock or whatever. I'm wondering what's kind of going there. That's one of the questions that I've come up with in that first act there.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on Detmer. I think there's definitely going to be more there to play out in the season. Science Officer Stoddard, we got a lot of damage on the ship. Can you explain some of this going on?
Yeah, this was incredible. First off, I love that we still kind of have the rock debris and rock pieces coming from the wall and the ceiling. It's very TOS. I love that that's a thread that if you haven't picked up on in Star Trek, anytime there's damage on the ship, it's hilarious. It makes me laugh. No, you're spot on, Kevin. I think Jet Reno in this episode, her snarky humor was perfect. It was not too much, not over the top. And I find her a very good combination of Bones and Scotty is how I kind of see it. She has the snark of both of them, but the knowledge of Scotty. And I love that she uses that to relate to people in a very different way, but it works. And it's kind of, you can see them being motivated a little bit, like, come on, get your crap together. And so I really enjoyed her in this episode, I think most of all, and it was fantastic. I too am worried about Detmer. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'm sorry. When you said how she finds a way to relate to people, just made me think I would love to see her in a captain's chair doing her own version of diplomacy. Put her right now in your brain of all those great Picard moments or Cisco moments where they had to basically turn up their diplomacy by 2 to try to get out of something, and put her in that spot and see what would have happened. Sorry, I just thought when you said that, like, show I want to see right now. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I think that there's definitely something going on with Detmer, but I also think that she is afraid to be at the helm again. She really displayed a very tentative attitude about it, and like concern that I've crashed the ship. Like, I'm not qualified to be flying this anymore. And I really hope that it's nothing more than that, and just some repercussions, because obviously she's not hearing properly. And then Culber in this opening bit, was really snarky and funny. And I have to shout out this line because it made me laugh, because these are actual shirts. He wanted Stamets to spell, "My partner brought me out of a coma and all I got was this lousy t-shirt."
I want to interject there on your Detmer thoughts, guys, because
yes,
I think they're maybe trying to even set up maybe like a little bit of PTSD or something for Detmer after the crash. Was kind of, because she takes a hard hit to the head. So, I gotta go to Amy Nelson though, because Amy, one of the things that I loved right out of the gate was we saw everybody in the crew get moments in this first act, and that was something we've been screaming for, and I hope that's a trend that's going to continue.
I absolutely agree, and for me, it was Stamets, him getting woken up and worse than me. What? I don't understand. You need my bio bed because someone's worse than me, and the interplay between him and Culber, and even when he's in the Jeffries tomb, well, you better stay alive so I can get you out and kill you, and I love you, and the kiss, and just how natural and beautiful their love is, and glad to see that Culber is back. No more mycelial network issues. I think that's been worked through. And I seriously thought that Jet Reno was going to talk Stamets into not going. We can send Nilsson up. Go ahead. Yeah, she's going to do fine. And we all need to rely on someone. and it's not bad, and you've gone through A, B, C, D and had to be forced in a coma, it's okay. You're not bringing your A game. I mean, she's just like you guys were saying it like it is, relating, not, I mean, the words are mean, but she doesn't mean it that way, you know?
Yeah.
And I just thought, and Stamets, I just thought, okay, you're right. Let's send up. Nope. He gets right on up and just ignores everything, ignores his body. I think there's something there. I'm not sure what he's trying to prove, but I'm keeping my eye out on Stamets.
Yeah. So as a lot of little things in this first act, I loved the captain confidence of Saru in this first act as well. And just seeing the crew, and like I said, just getting moments with everybody, even throughout the chaos, I thought was great. Kevin, one of the characters I was really happy to see back was Nan, because I know we were actually, both you and I were fans of her in season 2.
Is it Non?
Non.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember a lot of the scenes that she was in, though, and I'm having trouble remembering it, but I do remember liking her, and it was interesting to see her back, and especially mixed with Giorgio. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was quite interesting. Yes, Miss Hayley.
I like the 5 people in the background. Did you guys catch that?
Apparently not.
No.
Which background? When she was in
so
the sick bay or engineering?
No, when Saru and Tilly are leaving, they are walking on the dark black sandy beach, and over Tilly's shoulder, you see a bright pink coat. And it looks, and then just like a little bit as they keep walking, there's like 3 other people. So there was 2 people and 3 other people. So yeah, some hikers apparently got caught on Discovery, and they don't even know it.
Well, they were filming. I'm assuming those are additional scenes they were filming in Iceland. So.
Yeah, they filmed in Iceland, and it was pretty cool.
Yes, it was beautiful settings. But Miss Nelson, would you care to read Act 2 for us?
Sure. Cal, a Coridonite? Is that how they say it?
Coordinate.
Coordinate miner on board Discovery. Non tells Giorgio the ice visibility growing around the ship is somehow parasitic, and that Nielsen and a team are studying it, but that growth accelerates in the shade, meaning the ship will be screwed once the sun sets. Giorgio asks why Non remained aboard Discovery rather than remain in the past. Non replies that she felt need to remain in order to honor Iriam, who was a science officer but paid the price of a soldier. Giorgio replies that she stayed aboard Discovery to avoid being placed in charge of Section 31, as she knew that, in her words, bureaucracy is where fun goes to die. The pair encounter Linus, who reports that the EPS grid on Deck 6 has been repaired. Giorgio asks about Linus's visual spectrum, and he states it is 74,000 nanometers. Non orders Linus to Deck 8 for further repairs, and Giorgio, with a mischievous look, volunteers to join him. On the surface, Saru and Tilly follow the stranger and note that the floating rigs have visible blast marks, indicating someone wanted to shut them down. The stranger walks into a ravine where he is transported away. Saru and Tilly follow and find themselves transported to a bar embedded high atop the cliff. The 3 Caridian men inside draw weapons on them. They reveal they saw the Starfleet ship crash, but question whether Saru and Tilly are Starfleet officers. Tilly's recitation of Starfleet code about officers' conduct convinces them to lower their weapons. One man identifies himself as Cal and says he believes the officers will help them with an unknown problem. He says the planet has no official name, but they are miners and they call it the Colony. Osir, the bartender, warns that Zara will have tracked Saru and Tilly to the bar. Tilly offers to trade some of Discovery's dilithium in exchange for the materials needed for a new translator. Cal says they will require enough dilithium to power their vessels, fix other equipment, and to barter at the Tellurite exchange. Aboard Discovery, Stamets and Reno have tracked down the final blown relay in the Jeffries tomb. tube. But Reno says her injured spine prevents her from accessing it. Reno offers to summons Nelson to make the repair, but the ailing Stamets volunteers to crawl into the space. Zara, the colony's courier in the bar, Cal says the translator appears old. He uses programmable matter to construct a new device, which amazes Tilly. Cal tells her he always believes Starfleet would come to help and says once the colony is self-sufficient again, the miners can defend themselves. Osir tells Saru that Zara is their courier who delivers anything they cannot make or grow, which is pretty much everything. Suddenly, Zara and several henchmen arrive before Saru or Tilly can leave. Zara says they must be from Discovery, though he could find no trace of the ship in his database. Cal, bluffing, tells Zara that they have been in contact with the other Federation ships. Zara says he detected light energy, gamma rays, and gravitational waves upon their arrival, and after seeing their outdated technology, correctly deduces they are time travelers, surprising Cal. Zara kills Cal painfully in retribution for having helped Saru and Tilly.
Lots of interesting things going on here as we kind of get a little bit more of the look at the world of the future. And it doesn't seem like too much of a happy place, Miss Hayley.
Yeah, definitely not. Though this was really interesting to me that Cal clearly knows to some degree about the Federation and Starfleet in particular, and knows that Starfleet helps people. And I found that really quite fascinating. And I would have loved to have gotten to know his character a little bit more and how he came to learn about Starfleet and how they help people. And interestingly enough, the actor who played Zara, I recognized him, but I had to go back to IMDb. He was on the show Medium and played the main character's husband. He was a really interesting character because he was smart and he could figure things out in a scary way. But I have to say, we got a Western in Discovery. I love that he had spurs. Like that was just like that. I don't know why that just really triggered me to be super happy. I was like, oh, he's got spurs. It's fantastic. But
Kevin,
yeah.
I was gonna say, Kevin, we got the good, the bad, and the ugly going on around here. Apparently, I love the character of Zara, and I knew I recognized his face. And like Hayley said, I brought him up on IMDb. He's been in a lot of things, Mr. Reitzel.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what he has been in, but he was reminding me of the Postman's villain, Will Patton, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The way that he kind of looked and acted, and he and his henchmen were, and stuff like that. He's also reminds me, I forget the guy's name, but I remember he was like the main villain in like Lethal Weapon 3 and stuff like that. But as soon as they arrived and they like pushed open the doors, like the old saloon doors, I'm like, all right, who's going to die now? Something's going down, you know? That's the way that I felt though. But what I thought was really cool was that programmable matter thing that we got a little taste of from the first episode with the guy's bed and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, so 3D printing just got a little jump more in the future. Gotcha, you know? So I thought that was kind of cool. But I love the whole feeling of the main henchman and how he was kind of assessing the situation. You can tell he's a smart guy, but and you know, he knew that he was in control and being able to call them out as time travelers and stuff like that, and to do so. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Miss Elson, it's always kind of scary when the bad guys are right on that smart level and actually know more of what's going on, I think, than our heroes. Plus, I got to say, Tilly was shining in this act.
Even though her name does not imbue power. What did she say? It was so cute.
Imbue rank or something like that.
Yes, yeah. She was just pretty awesome. And Saru was right. She makes a great first impression and won them over. And I have a theory about why and how Cal knew about Starfleet and why he was so willing to trust. And then I love the scene where Tilly was complimenting him and oh, you're pretty good with that stuff. Well, maybe I'm good enough for Starfleet. And you're like, oh, yes. It just those ideas are what I look for, because that's what I want to be. I want to be good enough for Starfleet, and just to have that idealism come back. I was so happy to see that. And yes, the Zara character, love to hate him. He was really, really good.
I just realized he has a knack for a Western type character because he played John Campbell in Hell on Wheels with a certain Captain Pike.
Yes.
Huh. There you have it.
Yeah, he did like 15 episodes on that. And I was like, I knew I remembered him from somewhere else.
Come on. We have him in it. We have Pike in it. We had Miles O'Brien in it. It was just a holodeck show. That's all it was. Hell on Wheels was a holodeck program.
It is now.
I will say there is one thing. I think Saru in this part of the episode was really great. He was deflecting really, really well. Like he would get asked a question and he wouldn't answer it, but he would in a way. And I thought that was really wonderful at not giving away anything, because that was their priority, to not give away anything about themselves, because they're in this world where they don't know anyone. They don't know who's enemy, who's foe, and who's their friend. And I thought that was really, really well done.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm going to be interested into is when they eventually encounter a Starfleet ship that exists in this time.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously there's still Starfleet ships around. We've seen that even established in the episode 1. So episode 2, they talk about it a little more. So I'm curious to see what that's going to be like. But let's move on to Act 3. Mr. Reitzel, if you would, Bobcat.
Okay. Zaroth says he can do better at the Tellarite exchange by breaking down the Starfleet officer's equipment for parts. Saru demands to negotiate a reasonable settlement with Zaroth. But Zara insists they have no authority and that the most important thing was obtaining dilithium. He reveals that the parasitic ice is leaving Discovery with leaving them little time to get off the ground before it surrounds the ship and crushes its hull and crew. Stamets approaches the damaged relay in the Jeffries tube. Nan discovers that Georgiou did not join them on Deck 8 for repairs and is missing. A sudden jolt of the ship leaves Stamets bleeding in the Jeffries tubes. Saru and Zara negotiate a deal, and Zara prepares to send Tilly back to the ship to retrieve the dilithium. He warns her that at night the ice infests everything and can even go down a person's throat. Before she can leave, Zara's men capture Georgiou along the perimeter. He orders her shot, but Georgiou deduces that Zara's competitors likely also observed Discovery's arrival and they are on their way, and that Zaroth is not strong enough to fend them off. Zaroth shoots her on a low power setting several times before Georgiou and Saru team up and fight back. The pair kills Zara's men, but Saru stops Georgiou from killing and disarming Zara. Tilly notes the sun has set, accelerating the ice growth on Discovery.
So nothing worse than parasitic ice. I just got to tell you, living in Alaska, it just grows everywhere. It's a mess. But you know what? This is getting interesting. I really love what we saw from Saru this go around too, as how he worked off of Zaroth. I want to go back to you because I know you really like Zaroth, but I just thought that back and forth between Saru and Zaroth was quite well done.
Absolutely. And of course, we will talk about the amazing fight scene with Michelle Yeoh and Saru. And it was interesting that Saru was like, okay, Tilly, when I say run behind the bar, is that because she hasn't had combat fighting training? I was a little surprised. I'm like, she's an officer and she's in the command program. So I was a little weirded out about that because I'm like, she could totally do some damage. She can be badass. I mean, this is Tilly we're talking about. Anyways, with that aside, the choreography of the fight scene was absolutely beautiful. I was just in awe. It was shot well, the action scenes, and I liked what they did. They sometimes slowed it down when she was kicking or, grabbing a gun, or I just really liked the action sequence in this act.
Yeah. Kevin, do you think Michelle Yeoh has some influence on the directing of these kind of action sequences?
Oh, I'm sure she does. I mean, she's, very experienced martial artist and stunt woman. I mean, go back and watch Super Cop with Jackie Chan. That was the first time that I really saw her. And she was amazing in that. And she did a lot of her own stunts and kicked butt. And she's been doing that for years. So I'm sure she had a little say in stuff. And I love that little move that she does with her leg and wraps that guy around the neck with it and brings him down and then like chokes him out and breaks his neck. I thought that was a great scene there. The thing that I really noticed in this, and just being a guy that likes to look at props and tech and stuff, I was really impressed with the costumes and the props just in this whole scene, especially the weapons that they were using. I really liked the idea. It was kind of like a cross between like a sawed-off shotgun, but with like a continuous type laser thing that I thought was really cool that you could set on different settings, and that, when it's not engaged, the handle would kind of pop up into the weapon be a little bit straight. Cause I noticed when he was carrying it as he walked into the bar, I thought that was kind of a cool look for everything. And then just other little things too, I noticed with technology and the props, it was done really, really well. And I don't think the costumers and the prop people get a lot of as much attention as they should in this. And regarding Tilly, I was kind of wondering about that too myself, Amy, but I'm wondering if there was just like, I know that she can take care of herself, but was there a reason why he wanted to make sure she didn't get hurt? Like maybe her knowledge or something? I don't know. That was a little weird because I know that she can take care of herself.
Input on that, because it's one of the things I liked about this was Saru in this whole sequence. It really shows the character growth of Saru. If you go back to Discovery season 1, it would have been a Saru who was unsure of himself and everything like that. And Saru just takes it on like a badass. I mean, you see him use his spine darts in this fight scene. And I honestly think that he told Tilly to get behind the bar because he was looking to protect his crew member. He knows Tilly's fighting may not be Tilly's strongest point. So, the thinking is, it's okay. I've got Giorgio and me here. Between the two of them, we can take these guys down. I mean, Giorgio counts for about 3 officers all in herself. But Hayley, what about you? What about this act that stand out for you?
Well, it's no surprise that Giorgio slipped off Discovery and showed up there, and very typical for her character. And it's interesting because you can kind of see her inner workings of trying to set up that she will take over the courier exchange, maybe potentially. I do have to say I'm not super crazy about her character. She's very, I don't know. There's something about her. And I know she's mirror, so I get it. But at the same time, it wears a little thin a little bit sometimes because it's just a little much, in my opinion. I do have to ask you guys, did we ever see that Saru got his little things back? Because they fell out. I didn't think they grew back.
I was assuming that they grow back.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I assumed too. Yeah.
I just was like, wait, he lost those. So confused.
Yeah.
Okay. That works.
Is Giorgio, let me ask you this then. Is Giorgio right now, because when you look at the crew, you kind of need some muscle. You really need a kick-ass security guy or security woman or something that can be a little on the, especially in a situation like this, to be a little on the not so Starfleet by the book thing. You need someone to kind of like, you know what, you may be Starfleet, but you're not Starfleet right now. You need to kind of someone to do that, because even though she's, I get your point, Hayley, but she's got this sense about stuff when it's going to go bad and go down. And, and she's been in the situation before. She's been in the power chair before. She knows the dark side of everyone and the capability that everyone can be. She doesn't trust anyone. And Saru's great, but I don't think he quite has that edge that I think that right now Giorgio is giving the crew, because if it wasn't for Giorgio right now, it'd be interesting to see what would have happened.
So I have issue with what you say. And you're right. Giorgio does come in. She learns quickly. She understands the power struggle. She almost gets Zara's own henchman to turn on Zara because she's like, you know, you don't know that you're going to be dying because you've got stronger people out there and Zara isn't giving you information. Anyway, she does that, but I don't like the fact that she's the one that comes in and saves them, because now we're saying that we need her, and she has been defiant and argumentative and, you know, this isn't the Starfleet way. Well, this is me. This is my way. And you can't trust her. And I feel like, okay, do we need her? And if so, then is that what's going to open up Section 31? Is Section 31 going to be placed in this time where while Burnham and the Discovery get the Federation going, and Georgiou is getting Section 31 going at the same time? That's what's going through my mind. But no, I don't want us to need that type of person.
This is where Burnham comes in, because it seems like Burnham can almost control her or stand up to her to a certain degree. And so that's where things are going to get interesting. But that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think, too, there's a great dynamic between Georgiou and Saru, as Georgiou kind of challenging Saru. And I think it has helped Saru kind of grow as a character in the season. I see where guys are coming from. I think sometimes they write Georgiou just a little too over the top with her lines and some of that stuff. And I'm worried that Georgiou is going to become the easy out for a lot of things. Like when they get in trouble, here comes Georgiou to kind of save the day. But I think the interesting fact is the fact that she could literally stab them in the back at any point. Does make it kind of like the Dr. Smith in Lost in Space or something like that. You've got that capability of it, but because of her loyalty to Burnham and her love for Burnham, it kind of keeps her in check. But you know what's going to happen? I think that's going to be one of the interesting things to happen going forward. Is how is Georgiou going to react as Book and Burnham seem to be get closer throughout the season? So that's going to be interesting to watch. But Hayley, would you take us on to the final act?
Of course. Via remote tricorder, Reno watches Stamets repair the relay. Culber arrives and chastises Stamets, but Reno tells him to set aside his anger so he can repair the relay. He does so, restoring power to Discovery. Saru orders Georgiou to hand over her weapon and promises to send the miners dilithium to power their vessels and to hand over Zara's vessel. He leaves Zara's fate to Osir, who gives him Tilly's pack and sends him out to the planet's surface. Georgiou also promises to kill Zara if he returns to seek vengeance on the settlement. After Zara leaves, Osir gives Saru a personal transporter and welcomes him to the future. Back aboard Discovery, Bryce is able to repair the communication system with the new translator. Defense systems are still down, and sensors are only partially functional, but shields and other systems are coming back online. Detmer reports that impulse and maneuvering thrusters are ready, but notes that Discovery was not designed to take off from a planet like this. The ship struggles to break free of the parasitic ice. An unidentified vessel approaches, prompting fear that it is one of Zara's competitors preparing to attack. Suddenly, Discovery is caught in a tractor beam that pulls it free of the ice. The ship hails them, and the crew is surprised, but relieved to see Burnham, with long braided hair on the other end. She reveals it has been a year since she arrived in the future.
So interesting developments here. Couple of things I pull out real quick is I don't think we've seen the last of Zara. I think we're going to see Zara again before it's all this. And Kevin, Sonequa Martin Green with long hair, hot. I'm just gonna say that. I gotta get that in there.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay. So, Kevin, what did you think of this final act? Because a lot of interesting things. I want a Reno and Stamets Trek short. That's what I want at this point. I like to see them get an extended time to work together.
Yeah, that would be fun. Does a translator? To me, a translator kind of sounds like a meatless tater tot. Does it sound?
Yeah, it was kind of funny to hear that.
I don't know. Anyway, regarding Burnham's new locks, I'm digging it. I was never a fan of her. It was an obvious wig with her hair tucked up in this weird little short gig that she had. I was never really a fan of it, but it's nice to know that she went with something a little different there, and I like that. So yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen with Zara, but I love the scene of the Discovery being pulled out of the ice like that. I thought that was a really cool effect there. And seeing the look too when they see Burnham on screen and everyone just elated and having a reunion, and then them figuring out like, wait a minute, I've been here for a year. Because I had a feeling something weird was going to happen with that, that she, because you're looking like how are they going to connect the two here? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, or if they explain that difference and jump, and why she has been there for a year and they had just arrived. So that's going to be interesting.
Amy, a lot of fun too in this segment. I mean, like I said, Zametz and Reno have great chemistry back and forth. The whole Zara thing, and we find out that Burnham's been there for a year. That's going to be a pretty major development, I think, in the next couple episodes.
Well, I think so, and it was sort of alluded to last week. When Burnham's and talking to the non-commissioned Starfleet person, well, according to temporal mechanics, they could arrive tomorrow or in however many years. So I absolutely loved seeing Burnham's face. It was like the best ending. It tied it all up for me together. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just so excited. I felt like this had a beautiful beginning, middle, and end to at least this story of Discovery making it through the time wormhole. And I loved it. And I do have to disagree with you guys. I hope we never see Zara again. To me, I want my episodic TV. We had a beautiful episode and we got Zara taken care of. We beat the bully. We made sure the bully went away, and it just had a nice, good moral. So I'm hoping that we don't see him. I think he's taken care of. And I just loved seeing Burnham. And I am surprised I'm saying that because, you get a little Burnham burnout. I get it. But when I saw that, oh my gosh, I was just so happy.
Hayley, what about you? What are your thoughts as we headed out of this week's episode?
I don't know. I'm on drugs.
Okay, Bobcat.
No, I agree with Amy. I thought that this episode, the entire thread storyline was really, really well done. It was very much just one A story. There was no B subplot to anything, which is really kind of fantastic to see because so many times we have an A, B, sometimes a C plot, even a D plot. And so it was really nice to just kind of have one big story that everybody was focusing on. Kind of not surprising that it's been a year. I actually was expecting her to say something of 5+ years, given temporal mechanics. And the fact that, you could come out on another side of a wormhole or black hole and time passes way differently inside of those than outside of those. And so it's not surprising that it's been a year, but I am surprised that it hadn't been longer than that. I really was expecting her to say something in the magnitude of 5 or more, at least.
Sort of like Star Trek 09.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I'm thinking a Thanos snap, Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. I got a question for you guys, and Amy, you kind of touched on it a little bit. So the first episode, we get all Burnham kind of setting the stage, and we were kind of like, part of us were kind of like, missing the Discovery crew. And in this one, we get all the Discovery crew and what's going on with them, with a little tease of Burnham at the end. I liked how you said, Amy, you like your episodic television and episodic type of episode, and that we don't see the villain again. I totally get that, and I'm with you on there. And that's something that I've kind of missed. I hope we don't get this type of thing again, though, where, and this is the one thing that bugged the crap out of me, why I got tired. One of the reasons why I got tired of The Walking Dead, where it would focus in on a part of the group the whole episode, and there would be other main characters that were not seen that episode. In the next episode, you would just see those characters and not the ones, and not see them all kind of work together. One of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to television series is when they do that, because I like it when you can mix things up and show, like you kind of said, Hayley, about how there's, the plot A, plot B, show them all. But it's fine to give one most of the credit. But I'm hoping that now that they're going to be together, that they stay like that and they do that. I'm not a fan of that type of storytelling.
I think it works in this particular two-parter, Kevin, because I think it really establishes both sides. You get some stuff going on with Burnham, but it really gives a chance for the Discovery crew to really establish themselves. And I think that was something that was needed. So I think it works here. And having the time differential also I think is kind of an important aspect here. So I think I agree with you on that. That was kind of always one of my bugaboos with The Walking Dead, is that we have the same story going on, but it takes 3 episodes because they tell it from 3 different perspectives. And it's it's frustrating as all out. All out. But I think here in this case, it was a good setup. It was a good setup. But I want to, I don't want to have to there's okay, this half of the crew, you're doing this. The other half of the crew, you're doing this now, and then you take one whole episode to tell each one of those. You don't need to do that. Yeah. So. What I'm hoping for is we get back to more like of a quality A story with a good B story. And they rotate it out. What about
what Hayley was saying?
Yeah. What do you think on that, Amy?
No, I absolutely agree. And as you were describing that, Kevin, I was like, oh yeah, I hate that. I mean, that was my life in middle school because I was watching soap operas and they are famous for doing that, you know? And I'm like, no, I care about Luke and Laura. No, whatever. But I think that, again, why I like this episode so much is because we do get the take care of the bully, help the colonists, get the ship out. And we do get, Culber and Stamets, they're working together. Reno and Stamets are working together. We get Saru and Tilly. We're getting hints of Detmer. We're not shying away from it, but we're seeing Non sort of take on some responsibility in engineering. So I think that they're developing the characters as we go. And I agree with you, and I'd like to see more of that.
I definitely agree.
Hey, Hayley. So I think this is season of Discovery's on to, I think, per my personal opinion, the best start of any of the seasons so far as developing the storyline, developing the characters. I mean, I'm a big fan of season 2 and getting Pike out of the gate and everything like that, but I just feel like there's something different, a little something different here, Kevin.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you guys that. Now that I wasn't excited about the direction that I heard that they were going. And my judgment on that is still there. I'm kind of waiting for it to get before I kind of decide whether or not this is, something that I think is a good direction to take a Star Trek show. But I'm kind of curious where you guys are at right now. Now that we're 2 episodes in, we're getting a taste of the 900 years plus in the future, and Starfleet's not what it is. Where are you guys feeling with that 2 episodes in? Are you guys liking it? Are you what do you think? Let's start with you, Hayley. What do you think?
I'm definitely intrigued, and this is quite fascinating just because we can go places that we haven't before. And I hope that we get a lot more because of the fact that they're over 900 years in the future and they don't know anything. Obviously, more planet exploration, which is what Star Trek has always been about. And so that notion that this is going to happen more in this season is really wonderful. And there's definitely some stuff that I'm very intrigued about. I'm still really curious about the burn and what this all entails. So they've dropped some things in this 2 episodes so far that have made me very intrigued. I'm enjoying it more than I did Lower Decks, and more than I did seasons 1 and 2.
What about you, Amy? What do you think?
Yeah, after watching this episode, was like, I love Discovery. Now I understand when people would say, "Oh, I just love Discovery." I'm like, you do? Really? But yes, these 2 episodes and this one especially, I'm all in. I love that we're in the future. I guess to me, it feels more comfortable. I'm enjoying these characters. I've had 2 seasons to get used to them. I don't know, maybe that's part of it because when I watch Star Trek, usually it's TNG and I get that nostalgia because I know them so well. And so having those 2 seasons and now having amazing writing, amazing storytelling just from these 2, so different, I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it, you guys. And I don't think I've ever been this excited about Discovery. This is awesome.
I want to interject something. You brought up a point there, Amy. You're talking about watching Next Gen. And let's think about it for a second. 2 seasons of Discovery have equaled 1 season of Next Gen, which means we haven't had the time to develop these characters to their full potential yet, the way that 1 full season of an old school Star Trek series has had. And I think we're just now starting to see the dividends of that. Plus, this is something, Kevin, I know that you have been a big emphasis on. These episodes felt fun. And I think that's something that's a big thing for Discovery here, Kevin.
Yeah, and I think too that in addition to kind of listening to what maybe fans wanted to see, but I think they're paying attention to the actors that are bringing these characters to life and realizing we got something there. It's kind of like when writers see chemistry between actors going, you know what, we weren't planning on doing this type of relationship with them, but let's do it. And I think Stamets is one of those guys because he was basically an ass, for a while there, but now he's not so much. And I like that. And, they hit gold with Jet Reno, if you ask me. This is the type of person and character that I think this show really needed, as well as some of the other characters too. And I like that we're getting the bridge crew a little more room here. That was one of the biggest complaints I've had for the first 2 seasons is we need to know more about these characters because I'm forgetting the character's name that died last season, the robotic Arium. Did not get the due justice that character should have got. I needed to care more about that person. When that person died, yes, it was sad, but honestly, I wasn't invested in that character. And I think that if they would have done that a little bit more, I think it would have, I would have enjoyed that a little part more about it, I guess. But I like that we're getting that more now. And that's been one of my biggest complaints about Discovery. And I'm glad that they're doing that now. At least that it shows like they're doing it.
Yeah. I think too, I want to get your all guys' thoughts on this real quick. Having the shackles off of being crammed into that box of timeline that Discovery was in season 1 and season 2, I think it helps them be able to spread their wings and get new ideas and get some new things without having to worry about canon or anything like that. We're at this point now where Discovery can kind of do almost whatever it wants to. And I think it's a big help for the show, Amy.
Yeah. And actually, I love seeing all the technological advances, programmable matter and this. That's just amazing. And to me, that's Star Trek. What do we see in the future? But you had mentioned something and I was like, oh yeah. Why did Saru, when they walked or when he was worried about talking to people, it's like, well, we can't damage their timeline or something like that. He made some comment like that. And I'm like, dude, he didn't think that they could have gone backwards. Do you?
It's a possibility because they didn't know when they were at that point.
But they knew they were going into the future. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's a solid known fact. And so I was just surprised with his hesitancy. I understood, yeah, we can't go out there because we don't know how we're going to be received. Totally respect that. But, we don't want to damage any timeline. I didn't buy that line.
Yeah.
But no, I love that it's in the future.
Yeah, that felt a little out of place. Hayley, what do you think?
So I am glad that they are out of the box that they put themselves in with seasons 1 and 2. I also had hoped that when they announced a new show, they would have been between TOS and TNG. I still want that. I still want something in that interim time frame because there's so much there that we could explore. However, I am glad that they are in this future where so much has happened, but then it's also very much an alternate future. So they really can kind of do as they please and really flesh out some really fantastical stories and tech and science. It's just going to push the boundaries to what we already have now, which Trek has kind of always done as well. It's always said, hey, here's this weird, fantastic thing that we've created in this show. And someone somewhere says, how can we make that a thing now? And I love that aspect so much.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they've done a good job with it. Kevin, do you have any thoughts about the fact that they're outside of this box that they put themselves in season 1 and season 2? I know you were kind of not sure about the jump into the future, but so far I like what it's bringing to the table.
Well, it was at a time that there were still a lot of stories to tell at that time. I just didn't like the way they were telling the stories. I didn't like the format of the show, because it was like, the first season you got the evil Federation. I'm sorry, what are they called?
Mirror Universe.
The Mirror Universe and the Klingons, and you had you had the evil captain, and then you go to the second season, and it's like the ship is like doesn't have a captain just yet, and it's like, what's going on? It was just the kind of direction that there was happening. It was more about, not enough of the Federation, I guess. I don't know. It was just really, I think they were trying to find themselves. It's interesting because I've heard reports that Kirkman has a story already planned out. I think now he does. I don't think he had it quite down for the first two, because it was just too wonky. It started to settle, I guess, a little bit in season 2. We got a great Captain Pike out of it, and that whole side story there and stuff. But I think they almost kind of had to write this 900 years in the future to kind of get themselves out of this corner that maybe they painted. They didn't realize that it wasn't quite working, I'm guessing. So I don't know. But, Amy, I think you said it is right. You do get a chance. You don't have to worry about all these constraints of what's happening with canon and all that kind of stuff. But looking at what we think might be happening next episode there, I think this season's going to be about how they're going to try and fix what happened to the Federation, and then set their timeline to a better future, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out, and we're gonna be here covering all of it. But for right now, we're gonna take a quick break and tell you what else is going on around the FP net, and then we'll see what maybe our communications array can pick up. We'll be right back after this little break in the Union Federation podcast.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to the Fandom Podcast Network and all of the other awesome shows we have to offer. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, our weekly pop culture news podcast. Blood Kings, our Highlander podcast. Couch Potato Theater, our podcast celebrating our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite pop culture topics. End Zone, the NFL podcast. Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville podcast. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our Doctor Who podcast. Lethal Mullet, a 1980s and 90s action film podcast. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. And our newest show, Making Treks, a new Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. You can enjoy all of these great Fandom Podcast Network shows on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. Fandom Podcast Network is also on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. You can also find us on Facebook under Fandom Podcast Network. You can also email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter under Fandom Podcast Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
And we hope you're enjoying everything here under the Fandom Podcast Network umbrella as we strive to give you podcasts to feed your ears. But we've had the communications array out, the long-range sensors. Not a lot out there, but we have picked up some interesting subspace signals. Again, guys, not a lot of news this week. I think, COVID things kind of come in waves, it seems like. But I thought there was one very interesting piece of news to come out, and that's involving a new novel coming out based in the Picard TV series universe, Star Trek Picard, the Dark Veil novel. It is going to tell a taker of Riker and Troi on the Titan. Let me give you guys the quick breakdown on this. Within the United Federation of Planets, a terrorist strike on the shipyards of Mars has led to the shutdown of all relief efforts for millions of Romulans facing certain doom from an impending supernova. But when the USS Titan is drawn into a catastrophic incident on the Romulan Federation border, Captain William Riker, his family, and his crew find themselves caught between the shocking secrets of an enigmatic alien species and the deadly agenda of a ruthless Tal Shiar operative. Forced into a wary alliance with a Romulan starship commander, Riker and the Titan crew must uncover the truth to stop a devastating attack. But one wrong move could plunge the entire sector into open conflict. Obviously, this is taking place before we see retirement Riker and Troi like we did in Picard. But we're getting a lot of Riker and Troi lately. There seems to be a lot of demand for this. And Amy, we're talking Troi, so that means I have to start with you.
Yes, I am loving that we are seeing so much Troi on Lower Decks and in Picard. I just have to say that the Discovery episode, I mean, we all know Fistful of Data's Troi Durango, the best. So I'm really looking forward.
I just gotta say real quick, I loved her in those episodes.
Yes.
She was so good and looked awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But I am currently reading the Picard novel, and when I saw this with Riker and Troi, I'm very, very excited. It looks like it will complement the Picard novel, sort of get a different take on it. So I am going to get it and read it. I'm surprised. I haven't been reading books lately, but they're getting pretty good.
Kevin, I think they're hitting an area where a lot of people have been really clamoring. They loved what they saw of Riker and Troi and Picard. Obviously, the amazing guest spot in Lower Decks episode 10 got a lot of people really excited. I think we're not done with Riker and Troi on TV if this tidal wave keeps up.
Oh gosh, I know. And it's funny you bring up Lower Decks, because when you were reading that synopsis there of the book, and I was thinking back to that No Small Parts season finale, episode 10 there of Lower Decks. It reminded me of a trivia thing that I did not mention when we were talking about the season finale episode. When you see that in Lower Decks, and by the way, one of the things I love about that show is how well animated these ships are. It was the first appearance of the USS Titan, first mentioned in Star Trek Nemesis 2002, with Riker left the Enterprise to take command of, accompanied by Troi. Design of the ship was finalized in a contest in 2005. The ship has only otherwise appeared in non-canon Star Trek Titan novels. So this is really cool because they now have what the ship looks like, because we get to see it on Star Trek Lower Decks. And sorry, I'm a Star Trek ship nerd, and I love certain designs over others, and that Titan was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was. Hayley, are you excited about this?
I'm excited that other people are excited. I am not a
No, she's not, Kyle.
Yes, I am. I love that people get really excited about the books. I am not a sci-fi novel reader, but I am really excited that they're adding more to Riker and Troi on the Titan. I think that's a fantastic, because I know so many fans love that. And so I can be excited that other people are excited, because that's the thing to do.
It's funny you say that, Hayley, because I really don't read books anymore. I'm more of an audiobook guy, because I love putting them in a car or listening to them on my headphones or whatever. Tell you right now, you get Jonathan Frakes or Marina Sirtis to read that book, I am all in.
Or both portraying their roles. It could happen. But now, real quick, before we get out of this episode of Union Federation, I need to deal with a little science officer, Hayley.
Mm-hmm.
Science officer, Hayley.
Yes.
I got a question for her too, actually.
Oh no.
We found water on the moon.
I know. It's so exciting.
Wait. It's 2020. Are we sure this is a safe thing?
I have seen that. No, I think this is fantastic. It's really exciting because it's on the side that faces the sun. So there is ice essentially on the moon. And it's fantastic and really exciting to find this and everything else that we're still finding out today. It makes me so excited.
I want to put you on the spot, Hayley.
Oh, no.
Because, you're the science officer here.
Yes.
I was kind of curious about this. And if you guys want to chime in too as well. If the Star Trek writers came up to you and said, Hayley, we want you to write the episode that describes what happened with the burn and the dilithium, what do you think happened?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because apparently it feels like it all happened at once.
Which is what we've gotten so far, at least from what they've said in the first two episodes.
Was it a deliberate terrorist attack, or is there something about the dilithium that we don't know? Did it become self-aware, like exocopy? What's going on here?
So they did explain that most of the dilithium exploded. Not all of it, but most of it, and something had happened. There's two things. It really could be that somehow with everything else that had gone on, it's been over 900 years, there could be something in the universe that caused it to destabilize on its own, right? That could be a possibility. If that was the case, in my opinion, all of it would have gone off if it had destabilized. However, you can say that maybe dilithium crystals that had been mined earlier reached that point sooner than others. But then it wouldn't have been a single event. It would have been multiple events as the dilithium crystals reached a certain point in their age after being mined that they eventually too would explode. So I kind of don't tend to lean to that. I lean to the other side of something happened. It's mischievous. Someone, some person, some force of some kind caused a certain amount of dilithium to explode, perhaps to cause the dismantling of Starfleet and the Federation.
I have a thought process on this.
Thank you.
Dilithium crystal regeneration chambers, which somehow were invented in season 2 of Discovery, thanks to a certain really intelligent alien friend of Discovery. Could there be something tying in with that maybe some little hacking aspect of that, and that's why it affected only Starfleet ships or ships that were using dilithium for warp, and that's why there's still pockets of natural dilithium out there still?
It could be that. I have heard posited that because Romulans don't use dilithium crystals, that it could be something there. We have not seen tons of alien species at this point, so we don't know who still is in existence. I can't imagine that if the Lurians and Tellarites and Andorians and Orions are still around, that Romulans wouldn't be, or maybe the Remans had something to do with it.
But the dilithium, they said in this episode that the dilithium stopped working. It became inert.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ships exploded because they didn't have the power. So I don't think that maybe because I'm closed-minded, I don't think that you can make all the dilithium everywhere somehow go inert at the same time. So I don't know. There's something there. I don't know if it's like deliberate. I think, you have a battery and then it dies. It has a lifespan. But again, the way that the visual, no. Do you know what? You guys, I am confusing because I watched The Ready Room.
Yeah, well, let's hit on that then.
Yeah.
You watched The Ready Room.
Wait, hold on.
Hayley's understanding me, and I was like, that wasn't in this episode. That was in The Ready Room.
Kyle, remind me and the listeners when you just referred to someone in the last season about replicating the what was it that you were saying?
Yeah, you remember? I can't think of the character's name. She was in Short Treks too. It was the alien that Tilly made friends with. She was like that super science queen of the other planet, and the Discovery went and had something to the dilithium crystal regeneration chamber.
Sure, it was a Short Treks thing.
The character was introduced in Short Trek, but then was in the end of season 2 of Discovery, where Discovery went and got this dilithium crystal regeneration chamber made.
Okay, I had forgotten about that. Okay. Gotcha. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, let's hit this with some Ready Room.
Okay, so in the Ready Room, we got to see, I think it was the whole opening. I mean, it seemed a lot, and there was a lot of information, and it said that the dilithium became inert, and then that's what caused the ships to explode because they didn't have the power or something. But what they showed visually was like all the ships all at once exploding. And again, so maybe that's why we should think if it's happening at a specific time everywhere, then maybe that's sabotage. But I'm thinking, how do you make a material element like that, dilithium, just go inert? I don't know.
Well, and that's the interesting thing because,
dilithium magnetic pulse or something.
Well, and that's the thing. It's very much of, okay, we're 900 plus years in the future. So the ships that exploded in next week's episode, in that opening sequence, how long have they been out there? If it's not been very long, then perhaps somehow, yes, the dilithium could be sabotaged. If it's been only recently mined in the last, let's say 20 years. So you could easily say that because they said not all of the ships exploded, not all the dilithium exploded. So if it's maybe ships that are a little bit older and their dilithium crystals are older, then that wouldn't be a problem. And maybe it's just at a certain point in time, somehow some sabotage happened. Because I really don't foresee it being like, oh, it just became inert and then suddenly the ships exploded. Like, okay, it becomes inert, you eject it, you're fine. But it became inert so quickly and the ships exploded so quickly, there was no reaction, no response. They couldn't do anything about it. So is my guess. And so I think it's sabotage, but by whom is the question.
Yeah, that makes interesting ideas to go around. But you know what? We're getting close to the end here. The mission, we got to hit the space dock here to get ready for next week because it's going to be an interesting week next week, I think, guys. Any final thoughts before we head out, Kevin?
I'm just going to say that I'm looking forward to it because Jonathan Frakes is directing the next episode called People of Earth. And of course, we get Burnham reunited with USS Discovery crew.
Amy?
Yep. Looking forward to seeing Jonathan Frakes direct. They talked about it at the Ready Room and they gave some wonderful stories about how he sings when he directs it. It's great. If you haven't seen the Ready Room, please watch it if you can.
Have you got your jazz ready, Hayley?
I do always have my jazz ready. No, I'm really excited about next week's episode and getting to see Burnham reunite with her crew and her family and explain what's been going on with her because a year's passed and she's been up to some really interesting things per what we saw in the Ready Room. So I'm very interested.
Yep. Well, with that, we're going to close these hailing frequencies. We will see you next time on the Union Federation podcast. Until then, hailing frequencies are now closed.